Well, Huntington's came into our family, as we understand it, through Bert's grandmother. And she had two sons, one of which was Bert's father, and he was called Richard. Richard, unfortunately, found it difficult to be open and honest with his wife, Solange. He didn't tell her that his mother had died of Huntington's disease. They went on to have two children, my husband Bert and his brother Frank. Of course, there was such a lot of stigma attached to it in those days that he kept very quiet about it. Solange told us about Huntington's being in the family when her husband did open up to her about it. Bert and I had already had our two children, David and Elise, and they're now in their late 30s. Of course, when we found out they were very young children, and we took the decision that because there was no gene known at that stage, we couldn't find out definitely whether Bert had Huntington's disease or not. So we thought, well, our best course of action is to try to live life as fully as we can. We decided not to necessarily tell the children at that stage that Huntington's was in the family.
No, one day was...
Oh, we have some very, very happy memories of our children growing up, some lovely holidays. A lot of our holidays were in France because of the French connection with Bert's mum. So Bert hadn't wanted to be tested, but he'd always said that at the point when David or Elise needed for him to be tested, then he would. So when that happened, he went straight ahead and was tested first. And of course, sadly, it was the bad news that he did have the Huntington's disease gene. All around this time when this was happening, we suddenly realised that Elise was having some shaky hands and was getting very tired and a little bit confused. So she's a younger person who has developed Huntington's disease symptoms earlier. So changes are very gradual, of course, with Huntington's disease. And our plan was to try not to panic. Try not to focus on every little thing which could be a sign or symptom of Huntington's disease. Which I think we were fairly successful in doing. It's not an easy thing. But our feeling was there's no point in I want to say there wasn't any point in wasting, the life that we had. That means I've got to have two goes, and one of those is bound to be a... Okay, Lizzie, your go. Nowadays, I think the issues for Bert and Elise are quite complex. There's a lot of things to take into consideration to do with the different aspects of Huntington's disease. The main thing for me as a carer, I think, is to maintain a very calm household for Bert and Elise. Because stress is not great for them at all. You don't always know what's HD and what isn't. And in some ways, does it matter if you're able to live a life in a normal way, if you have some coping strategies around those feelings? But perhaps it would have been nice if there was more advertised about that.
This was a lovely piece, Lizzie, wasn't it? You did this using the felting, didn't you? Felting method. How did you get all these different colours?
You can just layer them up and then...
In some ways, I feel as though it's almost the carers who need as much support as the person with the Huntington's disease, because people with Huntington's disease can perhaps become a little bit confused about their feelings. I don't know if that's a fair reflection of things, because I haven't lived with Huntington's disease and I don't know what it's like to have a disease going on inside your brain that is altering the way you're thinking about things. Bert has had some counselling himself, and I've also had some help with counselling. It gives you an outlet for the emotions that you perhaps don't want to talk to with your family.
Her artwork, see, she loved it. That was when we first moved into the building.
I was sad to finish my career a couple of years before my retirement, but I enjoy being at home with Bert and Elise now, enjoy the time we've got together, and so it hasn't really upset me in that way too much. What I do feel is that, of course, we had all these dreams for
Chelford.
In Chelford, yes.
you know, I'm sure would have been probably the type of people who'd have bought a camper van and gone off all over the place. Life is mixed for us at the moment, if I'm absolutely honest, because there are points of sorrow. If you think about what would have been in terms of where we are now, it's perhaps very different. On the other hand, life is sweet in other ways. We live in a beautiful place. Bert and Elise are managing extremely well. They're both very strong characters, and that helps a lot. For other families who are struggling, I think Huntington's can be quite unique to each person who has it. There is no formula for how to live. I mean, in broad terms, I think it is just about living for as long as you can, as well as you can.